you for sending it to me.
Hello and welcome back to a weekly market recap. I'm with Rich.
Hello, everyone.
And I'm Knight. Let's get to it. This past week, we saw the market up 4.65%, which brings us up year to date 3.47%. A complete reversal from what we saw the week before, which we were down 3.31%. And really, we have a few reasons why the market has gone up. And so the first thing we're going to talk about is the next stimulus, the budget reconciliation, what we're seeing out of the Senate. We're also going to talk about the jobs report that came out on Friday. And even though why it wasn't as good as what we were expecting, it actually might be beneficial for stimulus. And we'll talk about Bezos stepping down from Amazon and what impact that might have and where we've seen that before. But before we get into this, really part of the main reversal that we saw was, again, we talked about this, how the GameStop craze, people taking out from their other positions and piling into GameStop actually did cause a mini sell-off in the rest of the market. So what did we see this week? Just the exact reversal of what happened. So the GameStop fell back to, realistic levels, and we saw the rest of the market rise around it. So basically a reversal of that. But anyways, enough on that. Let's get into what happened in Congress today. So, Rich.
Yeah, so today the Senate went through their process and created a reconciliation procedure. And basically, when you do reconciliation, it's only about revenues and spending. There are some limits around it, but basically it creates a 1 to 2 month window within which the Senate can get around needing a 60 vote majority where the Democrats only have a 51 vote. So the Democrats in the Senate got together, they voted, it was 50-50 split to go the reconciliation route. Kamala Harris, vice president, then used her vote to break the tie. So they're set up for a reconciliation process. That means that there's about a month to 2 month period in which various committees are going to get together to vote on this.
Yeah, well, for once, my political science major comes into play. So what's important from all of this? It's that we have two ways of passing a bill. The normal bill, you would need 60 votes from the Senate to pass it, to move it forward. There's one area, which is the budget reconciliation, which happens once a year, that they're able to pass along other things through a bill and call it part of the budget. Now, what are they doing? They're taking this stimulus plan and basically putting it into the budget reconciliation. Now, the downside, as Rich said, is it can take longer. So it can take 2 months to see this all the way through, because what's going to happen is you're going to have all these committees adding proposals. We want this to be in the budget. We want this to, how are we going to free up the spending in this way? And that just takes time. So what we're also seeing is actually the House is trying to pass or move the bill forward for just this regular $1.9 trillion. And the reason why they're doing that is if the Democrats can get 10 Republicans to sign on in the Senate, that bill can go much faster. Now, it'll be interesting to see, because the Democrats actually have some leverage here. They can basically say, hey, look, we're going to pass this either way. It's either going to be, in the next 2 weeks, or it's going to have to be drawn out for 2 months. And we're going to say that this is for the American people. The people need it right now. So it's going to be the GOP and the Republicans who are slowing down what people need right now. So it'll be interesting to see if that leverage actually works and we get the regular stimulus bill moved through both houses of Congress. Either way, yet to be determined. What we do know is that it's almost a definite at this point, if we don't get the regular stimulus bill, we're going to get it through the budget reconciliation. So Rich, do you also want to highlight on what we saw in the jobs report this week and what that and how that even plays into the stimulus that we might see?
Absolutely. On the jobs report, it was weaker than expected. Fewer jobs were created than originally expected. And as a result, there is more pressure on Congress to do a stimulus. Now, how that plays out is a little bit difficult because it's harder to see if there's enough pressure to get 10 Republicans to agree to do a stimulus package separate from the reconciliation bill, but we will look ahead and see what happens. Of course, if you're in some of the states that are suffering, that puts more pressure on all senators to try to do some type of stimulus.
Yeah, well, one thing I do want to highlight specifically about the jobs numbers that came out is the unemployment rate actually did fall from 6.7 down to 6.3, which originally you look at that number and you're like, oh, wait, that's good. That's positive. We're making progress. But the reason why it actually fell is not because we added a lot more jobs than were expected. People fell out of the labor force. So people who were looking for jobs have now stopped looking for jobs. And that is really one of the fears that a lot of economists are looking at. When does this short-term layoffs turn into long-term systemic layoffs? And then that's a really bad thing for the economy and would take a lot longer to start back up and get back into. So seeing the unemployment rate fall 0.4% isn't actually as good as what we were seeing, only because of the reason why it fell. So it is important to note that, and we'll see. As Rich said, will that add enough pressure? I don't know. But I'll say the most interesting thing for me this week that happened, who on earth saw Jeff Bezos stepping down from Amazon? And what a day. Amazon crushes earnings, $100 billion quarter, the first time ever. I thought their stock was going to go skyrocketing, and then all of a sudden their CEO steps down and basically ends up being flat. You have this super positive news with the negative news and nothing happens. But one of the things that I find interesting is who they have replacing him. And it shows that Amazon's going to be having a lot bigger focus on the Amazon Web Services, AWS, and that in the next. But Rich, you've seen this before with other CEOs stepping down, and what are your thoughts on it?
Well, one of the things to think about is Bezos is not totally retiring. He's going from chief executive officer, giving that up to, as Knight had said, to another person, and he is going to keep on as chairman, which means he's still going to be involved with the strategies. We saw this with Microsoft, and when Steve Ballmer took over, and for Microsoft, Ballmer just basically kept everything the way it was, and there wasn't a lot of growth, and it was only when he left that we saw Microsoft take off again, and part of that was their cloud strategy. Now we have a different situation, and this is more akin to what I see in Apple, where someone who was trained really well, knows the business very well, was in running a sector that has done extremely well for Amazon, and he's taking over. So this looks much closer to what an Apple view, and we may see a very good growth in Amazon.
Thank you, Rich. I think you cut out for a second, but that's okay. Anyways, to Philip, so basically what you're saying is that Jassy is more like Cook, Tim Cook, than he is Ballmer. And I think that's a very interesting juxtaposition to put those two next to one another. And time will tell. Again, like you said, Bezos he'll be there till the third quarter, and then he'll be in as the chief of the board, so the chair of the board. And basically just focusing on strategy. So it'll be an interesting role for him. Well, anyways, another big week in the markets, a lot of stuff going on. We appreciate you guys taking the time and spending it with us. As always, we're here to support you. Your money's here to support you. If you enjoyed this, please give it a like, share it, subscribe to us on YouTube. Every little bit helps, means a lot, and we'll see you again next week.